let's see. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Yeah,
Okay, I
we
see
can hear you.
Jay's talking, but I can't hear anything.
Oh, we can hear you. I can hear you fine.
Okay. Oh, I hear you now. It's probably my headphones connecting to a different device in my house.
Huh.
That usually happens. Thanks, folks, for joining. And just a reminder that this is just a working session, right? So it's purely voluntary. Even if no one joins, I would be setting aside this time because otherwise I'll never get anything done.
It's a good practice, yes.
Yeah, I only have a few minutes anyway. I have a competing meeting.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, this week is a little this week and next week. And I'm not sure if it's I want to say holidays, but it's only the end of September. I don't know what's going on. I figured next month is gonna get really wild, but now it's like for some reason meetings just a whole bunch lined up back to back.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what it is? You know what it is? It's the end of the quarter.
Yes.
That's what it is. End of the quarter. Oh.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those effects of pandemic because before it was like we have a physical limitation in the room and then they really pick, you can go to the meeting, you can go to the meeting. We don't have enough space in the meeting, but now it's just another box. So they invite everybody.
Everybody go to the meeting, it's like 400 people.
Yeah.
And so Jay, since we only have you for a few minutes.
Yeah, I have a lot of do outs.
Okay, yeah, so I know one of the things that there was two things that you signed up to do before the previous meeting. One was looking at the Oscow tools, and then the other was helping with the development blog.
Yes.
So thoughts, need help, progress?
Yeah, I do need help. I'll be in Slack asking for that.
Okay.
But I'm active in them. Just had a lot of competing things that need to get done over the last week. But I'm tracking on it. These things are happening.
I am editing the wrong agenda. Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, let me know what you need. But I have it. I'm trying to put all the to-dos up here so that we can kind of visualize
the Oscow stuff. I'm still in the process of tracking down someone that can talk me through that. Everybody I ask, everyone agrees that Oscow is everybody's interested in it. No one seems to understand it at all. So I gotta track someone down who understands it, and but I'm doing that. So I have a few questions out, and that stuff will come back, and I'll make everyone smart. This is not the only place where I have to come through on that Oscow stuff, and I can blame this place because I told them I'm already doing it as a result of this. So there's nothing that says I can't do that kind of research for the other stuff that we have going on internal. So I'm killing a few birds with one stone here, but it's going to require me to get smart.
Okay, yeah,
someone else to get me smart on it.
No worries. Just wanted to see if you needed any help, if you came to any decisions, because then we could potentially work towards that information in this meeting. But here, if people don't have this, I'm sure you do. I am looking for the chat. Where's the chat? Chat. There it is. If you can sign in, that would be fantastic. Oh yes, this is a lovely thing that's been hanging out. So I am trying to just put everything in one spot. These were some of the to-dos. So let's go off some of the easier ones because we don't have some of the folks on. So Mike, I think you're on, right, Mike? Yeah. Were you able to take a look at that salsa JSON?
Yeah, so
ahead.
I looked at that. I looked through the Oscow, like so there's a couple of things there. I think I'm trying to find like something along the lines of either an Oscow spec or a similar sort of thing of like what that thing normally looks like in the outside sort of world of like, hey, here's a set of controls or requirements or whatever. And then what would the JSON schema look for that, look like that for that? Because
Okay.
like, just to be clear, I think your stuff looks good. It's just that there
There's some
might already
extra.
be some pre-existing sort of like, oh yeah, here's a requirement spec. And so there's a bunch of tools that already work with requirement spec, documents. So that's
Got
the
it.
one area I couldn't seem to find anything. So in that case, it might just be fine to use what you have. But I'm
Got
going to
it.
do one last kind of bit of research.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, if we don't have much to collaborate on here, feel free to do that during this time too. So I'm trying to think. Okay, we went through that. The charter and the group, this might be a good one because I don't think I have access to the Google Groups. Do you, Mike?
So which yes, I do have access to the Google Groups.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this I'll need you for.
Yeah, so the need to migrate to groups.io that's something that we're not even like, that's something that the Linux Foundation themselves are somehow organizing. Exactly what that means is also stuff that they haven't really made clear to us yet.
Well, according to, I don't remember who emailed, they said that we have to migrate it all.
Yeah, I get that.
Mhm.
That's not accurate.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
yeah, the Linux Foundation, I mean, as much as I love them,
Got it.
sometimes they're not really clear on like, oh yeah, we should all be moving over to this other thing. Okay, what does that actually mean? I don't know, you guys figure it out. It's like
Got
no,
it.
like they
Okay.
can help us figure that out.
Okay, got it, got it. Okay. So then that leads me to the charter, outside of maybe brainstorming on some of the blog stuff. I kind of stopped because Kim raised a concern, but I know there's 2 steering committee members that have signed off on at least 2 of these, or not 2, sorry, several of these sections and this effort, because I think we all wanted clarity.
Mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think the TAC is going to start requiring some of the groups to actually have this in place. So I'm just trying to get a sense of, I want to finish it just for the sake of finishing it and making sure that we are all in alignment, but I don't see an issue with creating this document. So,
Better to have it and not needed than to need it and not have it.
correct, right? But I mean, I know we've talked about it in the SLSA open forum discussion with other steering committee members, and we've talked about it, for several weeks. And no one ever brought up any concern. So it's just, it took me aback that there was a little bit of pushback on this document. But my understanding is that the TAC is going to start requiring things like this from the groups.
So it's requiring things like this from the actual parent group. So like SLSA, yeah, would need to have, or actually not even SLSA necessarily. It would be coming from the parent group
The
of
supply
SLSA,
chain.
which is the supply chain integrity working
Integrity.
group. But with that said, a lot of folks are saying like SLSA is large enough that it's probably
Yes.
sort of graduated purely out of just being the supply chain integrity working group.
Correct.
In which case, yeah, it would need to have its own sort of charter, which, just to be clear, it does. I think that there's not, once again, I think that there's nothing wrong with having a charter for this group, as long as like we don't spend all day just being like,
Yeah,
hey,
of
we
course.
need a charter. But no,
Yeah.
I think this is fine just to kind of make sure that we can go back to, for example, like the idea here is, SLSA should have a charter, so it could go to the TAC and say, hey, this is what we plan to do. So the TAC can go back and say, great, is there any massive overlap between your charter and Project X? And if
Yeah.
Project X is doing most of the same stuff, why are you guys not, why are you folks not collaborating? That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
in this case, I think this is super useful just to make sure that, if the tooling group says, hey, we want to be the ones who are in charge of education. Okay, hold on, let's sort that out before
Yeah.
tooling starts going and doing stuff with education, and then this group starts going and doing stuff with education. So on
Yes.
that front, I'm totally I think it's yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so I didn't, again, I'm not spending an enormous amount of time on this, and neither are the rest of us, right? It was a point of, okay, what are we trying to drive towards and how are we going to do it? Now I'm trying to think, where is it, the goals? We had some short-term goals and I'm trying to find them. I think it's this. No. Oh, there it is. The short term, it was under operating goals. It was evaluating SLSA, blah, 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 but we put this on hold because we need to do the Oscow stuff, right? I know we're going to start doing some of this blog work. As an example, like Jay and his the Microsoft's new framework, we were asking, well, how is this different, right? So we need to educate our SLSA community on what the differences are. So that'll be one thing that that helps, and then the other blogs as well. And I think that's pretty much it. As long as we can try to, from a short-term perspective, get closed out on the Oscow and start truly writing those blogs, I think we'll be in good shape from a short term. And a long term, obviously that can be a discussion for a different day. So thoughts, questions, concerns? No? Okay. So you said research, Mike. What do you want to do, live research or?
So I do have, there is a thing here, and I posted it in the agenda.
Okay, let me.
But there's this file, which is sort of the Oscal catalog schema. And the areas where it's a little unclear to me. And once again, this is the JSON schema that you would then follow to generate the actual thing there. And so there is an open question as to whether or not the SLSA requirements really fit the Oscal control catalog. So that's something worth, I think, discussing with probably a few of the other folks. But the idea here, and so just to kind of give you a bit of an understanding, there's that schema, there's that catalog schema, there's also
do you want to share your screen or?
Yeah, so yeah, sure, I can do that. Give me 1 second here. One second. There we go. Not that one. Also scale. Okay. So here's a bunch of the schema definitions coming from Oscal. And so not going to get too deep into this because this is unreadable over a presentation. However, there is, if I just move this out of the way so I can get the link here.
And I guess is this where the tools come in handy? Would they format it for us?
Potentially, yeah. There's some tools out there that can help out here, but pretty much anything that will allow you to sort of take like a spreadsheet and turn it into JSON or whatever will also help. Will also help out here. But there is also the so if we go here, there's a bunch of stuff in the Nist thing, which allows us to sort of like take a look at the different kind of like layers. So there's a bunch of different layers in here. The ones that are important here, and this is where, you know, once again, is SLSA SLSA is a framework, not really a set of controls, but we might still be able to still leverage it. And that sort of thing is just something we need to kind of like talk through. But there's the catalog model, and the catalog model, if I actually kind of like look through the catalog model, where is this? You could actually sort of see like, you know, this is what that actual thing looks like. There is going to be a set of controls, and each control has a bunch of parameters in there. And so if I look at a NIST 853 control, you know, this looks like, and you're all probably familiar with this sort of thing. It's like AC1, policies and procedures, and the control, here's the human readable bit of the control. Here is a bit more sort of, you know, or rather, this is more of a rigorously defined as thing of the control. And then the discussion is more of like how this control is supposed to, you know, be thought about in a more human readable sort of way, related controls, control enhancements, and any sort of other references. And so if I look at the XML or JSON, it looks like this, right? And so you can imagine at some level, the SLSA controls, or SLSA requirements, I should say, could be described in the same way, right? Where you have something like the label, which is the name of the, you know, what the actual label name of the control is, you know, and whatever other stuff there is. And there's a bunch of different things in here, which I'm not going to get too deep into, you know, guidance around the control and whatever. And so the idea here, right, is we could encode the SLSA thing in here, and then as other people who are using OSCal tooling, and obviously the big question now based on some of the conversations is like, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, OSCal looks really cool, but who's actually using it and who's actually doing a bunch of stuff with it is kind of another question. But this is really how a lot of that sort of stuff works at the level down. And as far as what tools are used to then like actually build out this XML is a little unclear to me. There's a couple of different things in the OSCal GitHub that they have. They still have the thing up there for seeking. Where is this thing? They have one for Go, which allows them to build out this thing, but they do have, they did have a, well, let me see if I can find this. They did have a page. Here we go.
Yeah,
That included a bunch of tools.
Yeah,
right?
there it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this
So
is what
there's
Jay is
Trestle.
going to look at.
Yeah. And they also have this one, which we're using actually with some of the stuff we're doing with Guac. It looks like there's potentially an OSCal editor, which maybe can help you, you know, can help out there. I don't know. I think also with that said, you know, given that like NIST 853 has a few hundred controls or whatever, like, and our thing has, you know, 20 requirements, it might just be relatively easy just to kind of write up a quick little thing that, you know, copies the HTML from the page or whatever. Like, I'm sure it's not going to be that big of a deal to do that. I think the bigger question here, and this is something that I think if there's folks who we can figure out, maybe even call up, you know, get some of the folks from the NIST side to say, hey, does SLSA fit right now? Because we also don't want to end up in a situation where if SLSA is more of a you know, a square peg kind of thing, and
Mhm.
you know, Oscal's more of a round hole. We don't want to kind of just force it in there for the sake of it. Outside of like, if that's not the case, maybe we just put something on the roadmap to either keep track of Nist, Oscow, or build something ourselves eventually to sort of do some of that mapping or whatever.
Okay, so if I go back to this real quick.
Mhm.
So I don't think we need to parse the at least not for the alpha version. We don't need to parse the website, right? Because that was this exercise that I did. However, what we could do is if we know the fields, if I can get this to download. Oh, it is downloading. I'm just not noticing it. Open. It's opening up on my, trying to get it to open. There it is. I don't know why it's using this, but so nope, that's not. Yeah, actually, this is it, right? All we have to do would be changing the labels or the order in which things happen, right? But you showed like a description, so as long as we know the fields and the order in which they are required, then we can just alter the CSV and then just create the JSON. So I'm hopeful that we can do this, like, you know, with a sample like this. This is very small, right? So any tool, as long as we have, and you said, where is that one that you were picking? Was it the catalog?
Yeah, so the catalog is the one, because like this would be, you would essentially have the requirements would each be a thing in there, and then what there would, so in if you were to sort of to take a step back just for a second,
Mhm.
if you were to look at SLSA would most likely be a list of controls, just purely the requirements, and
Yep.
literally the requirements and at what level each, you know, so even if like certain things that are like, oh, there's a couple of requirements in there that are listed as like at level 2, it's required, at level 3, it's required and authenticated for that specific thing, you would, those would probably be different controls under the Oscal model. But the thing that they would also have is they would have the concept of a profile, which, so there's also the concept of a Nist profile, and the Nist profile is sort of saying it's a bunch of controls that meet some sort of like baseline.
Okay, so this is what you were showing earlier, right?
Yep. And so one of the things that's sort of like linked out of here is a profile, and a profile is just
I see it now. The profile model. Got it.
Yep. And so it's, just to kind of go through there's also various JSON references throughout here as well that allow us to just sort of like look at what each of the individual things in there is supposed to be intended for. But like the basic idea of a profile is, according to just their own website, is an OSCAL document that describes a tailoring of controls for one or more catalogs with possible modification of multiple controls. So in this case, you would imagine a profile would be something like level 1.
Yeah.
Okay, it uses these requirements in these ways.
Yep.
Level 2 would be a profile, uses these controls in these ways. Level 3 is, you know.
Yep. Okay, so that makes sense. So let me write that down so I don't forget, because I will forget. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, so profiles. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah, I thought there it is, JSON. I don't.
Yeah, so if you click on reference,
Oh.
not that one. If you click on reference in there, you can see, yeah, that's the sort of stuff that like makes it very easy to actually see what are the things that you're actually putting into that JSON document that describes something like SLSA.
Yeah. Okay.
But the one area that I would just sort of say, I would take a step back and just sort of say, based on my research, that's how I would probably do it. But I would want to have somebody who's an expert in
Yeah.
Oscow just to kind of do a sanity check and say, hey, does that seem reasonable? Is there something that I'm missing? Like, is there another better way of doing it? Is this an abuse of Oscow? I just want to make sure we do that, as opposed to saying like, yeah, we did this Oscow thing. And then a lot of people are like, oh, no, don't do it that way. It's not really intended to do it that way.
Got it. Okay, so let me start this draft then. The draft of, okay, this is for, and you had one person questions that you had recommended before in the Slack channel. So let's go with salsa specifically. Working session. I'm just high level trying to think about that tools recommended or approach. Okay. Yeah, you mentioned one person, and I know that he couldn't make this time. So I guess,
You're talking about John Ziola?
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm actually curious, because I do talk to him relatively frequently, what the status is on his end, and like whether or not he's also an expert, I'm not sure. There's somebody who I used to way back in the day. So this is probably like 3-4, well, not way back in the day, but 3-4 years ago, when I was starting to do stuff with Oscal. Was it David Whitmer, something like that? Hold on, let me pull up his name. It is David Waltermeyer or Waltermeer. And he's one of the folks who is, let me pull up his stuff. So his GitHub. So I posted in chat here.
I see it.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I completely botched his name. Sorry, David, if you watch this recording.
Yep, but he's I believe the lead, or at least the technical lead, on the Oscal stuff.
Okay. So is he from Nist?
Yeah, he works at
Oh, okay.
Nist.
Okay, so I'm not gonna go to the distribution group. I'm just gonna go to this person. Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
And you know, if you go to the distribution group, usually there's folks who are pretty reasonable there. They also have, there's some Slack alternative they use called Gitter, I think.
Gitter.
As well. It's hard to keep track. But
I'm just surprised you can keep track, because
yeah, I mean, I've right now on my workstation here, I have Keybase open, I have Matrix open, I have Discord, because some of the open source projects use Discord, Slack, Microsoft Teams, and I think that's all. Oh no, my book editor likes using Skype. So
yeah. I forget the name of the tool. It used to be way back in the day that I would use it when I had to use like AOL and then like maybe Google Chat and
oh yeah, I think it was like there's Jabber and Pigeon.
Pigeon. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Pigeon. I remember Pigeon days.
Yeah.
I used to use it also with SameTime, because IBM had SameTime, which was part of Notes. And so I could use Pigeon to not only do SameTime, but then, external people conversations as well. So it was quite cool, but I don't know if it's even around still. Okay, so this makes sense. I'll reach out to Gitter. Okay, I figured maybe they had a more modern, spunk to it. And it didn't have the E, but okay then. So why don't we do this? Since that is going to require a little bit more finessing on my part, and I don't think anybody wants to see a recording of me going through an email or Slack messages. Why don't we just try to knock this out then? There was only one section, I think, future state that needed work. I don't know what the future state is, unless we can say, I remember us talking about it because if we expand, and another group decides to take on the education, that this may change. And so I think that's where this came from. So we can probably put like note subject change. But technically, so do we want to keep this future state of educate, evangelize? Or do we just assume that you're supposed to constantly reevaluate your charter?
So I believe from, I mean, like, I think the guidelines coming out of OpenSSF, I think is like once a year, unless there's like obviously like a big sort of shift of, oh, it turns out we took on a lot more, maybe let's reevaluate the charter. But I think the OpenSSF wants projects to kind of just, you know, even if the vote is no changes, like I think it's once a year. I don't know. Just to be also clear here, even talking to some of the folks in the TAC, there's been a bunch of back and forth on different things and how they've gotten adopted, and certain things that are like, oh, we're probably going to adopt a rule that looks like this, but we haven't adopted it yet. So don't hold me to it.
Okay. So then I'll just ignore that and just assume, you know, we'll revisit when the time comes and it's not going to be a big deal. I remember we merged these two, educate and evangelize. Highlight the benefits gained by using self-positioning SIG members, may highlight the current future work where the community is needing help. I think we can talk about the education first. And then wait, and well, oh, I see what I did. It was basically trying to put this ahead of this. And I think, I don't remember where this came from, but if someone is able to reword this, I'll give you the link. I think it looks fine, but just, oh, I forgot to say thanks to Jay. I didn't see his message. If someone can wordsmith this to kind of blend in, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, we can keep it as is. And then this one, I wasn't sure how to address. This is the only other thing, which is if there's deficiency, how do we bring it back to SLSA community, right? In my mind, it made sense because we're talking about identifying other use cases. I think, where is it? Identifying new use cases and identifying opportunities for SLSA expansion. So I think in my head, I had already considered it, but it's not in here, right? It's kind of education and, you know, I guess encouraging have those elements. So do we need to put okay, once you evaluate, then you educate, evangelize, and, you know, encourage identification or communication with SLSA. Do we need that? Thoughts? I'm gonna pick on someone. It'll be either Josh or Bruno, since I haven't heard from you all. So your choice.
What was the question?
So Brandon was saying he
Okay.
felt like he was missing a step after evaluate, right? Is like to recommend or reconcile, but I saw that as educate. And then in terms of identifying ways to expand SLSA, that would be, that's kind of here, but the real question is, should we add a statement in here that explains that, right? After the evaluation, you would then educate and bring back the findings for the SIG members and for the broader community, et cetera, et cetera. Do we need to add that here?
I don't think so. I think that it's clear the way that it is. At least you explained to me so.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? I'm
Yeah.
explaining. I'm not reading it.
Yeah. Let me see.
So that we can say after evaluations are performed, SIG will recommend, well, I guess educate the broader community on the impacts of SLSA. This, and then we can say see, educate, evangelize.
Should it be on organizations?
Oh, wait, what? Of SLSA. Well, I was trying to say, and see, this is where my English is horrible. Basically saying impacts on SLSA and impact on organizations. There's two different.
Okay, yeah, that works now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think, yeah, we will educate the broader community of the impacts on SLSA and organizations. And then, yeah, I don't like just directoring because I feel like adding a bigger statement like what it seems Brandon is asking for is a little bit too much.
Okay.
I don't know if the right word is educate or just having a position. Be clear, you had a position. We evaluated, and that's those reasons that you take that position, for example. But I don't educate, at least in my opinion, have a broader impact on. Well, I think both works. It's just a wording thing.
Okay, educate the. Do I just say the community?
Just
or
the positioning.
Yeah.
After evaluating our performance, this SIG, you have a position published, something like that. It's not necessarily education, because education, in my opinion, is like a broad, you go and you try to make people understand. Position, it's like well, we did this, and that's the position that we have. That's the thought and reasoning that we arrived that conclusion.
Okay.
So something more like after evaluations are performed, this group will take a position.
Yeah.
On its impacts for SLSA and organizations. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we don't have to point to the other section necessarily. Well,
okay, so
we
we
might
don't
want to. Yeah. I don't think we need to educate, evangelize, redirection here.
Okay. Okay, so I think, so this one has votes, this one has votes. I don't know if this flows. Someone can look at that and then I can give it a thumbs up. And then if other people can come in here and put their own thumbs up, and then I can open up a PR to incorporate this into the SLSA documentation. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, those were the last two. So this one, I'm not sure. Okay. I think it flows, but again, my grammar and writing skills are abysmal. So okay. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So Josh, Bruno, and Mike. Thoughts on this section, since we'll definitely need more votes.
I'm looking now.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah,
Okay.
you can give me you can count me as a thumbs
Yeah,
up.
Okay.
that's very, very straightforward. I like it. You can put a thumbs for me as well.
Okay. Me. Okay, so then like, I hope it doesn't look like I'm voting for you.
Someone comes and does a get blame
mean,
on the Google Doc.
Worst comes to worst, you know, it's like, okay, point them and say, hey, as voted on in, you know, this meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
And then Josh, right?
That's right.
Okay, Joshua. Okay. Okay, next section.
The communications.
I have that broader word again, Bruno, so feel free to give me different wording there.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I like saying the broader community because it's not about this community, it's about everyone else, right?
Yeah, the users. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then, so I have 3, if Mike and Josh, if you want to read the encourage. And then the operating goals. This is just basically, you know, what we're trying to aim for, right? And so I think we decided this like in one of the first few meetings that this is what we're going to do. And then anything else would be kind of more long-term as we get situated.
Just a question, because Oscow, it's something new for me. It's one of those Nist standard, or you're just adding?
No, the Oscow, the reason why we're trying to use it is because in order to do the mapping and the comparison to other frameworks,
Mm-hmm.
it would be better to do it in an automated fashion versus us having to manually go through and try to do the mapping ourselves and putting the descriptions, etc. So it's just going to help with efficiencies. So that's the only reason why we're using Oscow, right, Mike?
Yeah. So it helps out in a couple of different ways. One is it lets us sort of define potentially, right? It helps us define potentially SLSA as machine readable format so that somebody could go in and say, great, if I want to, you know, build a document, I could just pull down that JSON schema and I would automatically have all the requirements and yada, yada. That's one reason. Another reason is, well, you could then take those requirements and then say, okay, great. Well, how does that map to, let's say, NIST 853? Well, you can then say, well, I have this JSON document, this other NIST 853 JSON document, and I can essentially just have a very easy mapping in another JSON document that just sort of takes an identifier from this document and an identifier from that document. And then the thing that kind of makes that nice is for folks who are like, great, I'm already doing these NIST 853 things, and here's my Oscow doc. Oh, well, that automatically maps into SLSA. And so it's almost as if you get that interoperability between the different standards and frameworks and yada, yada, yada. And then long term, the other thing that folks have done a little bit here and there with Oscal is, in the cases of NIST 853 mostly, is folks can tag elements of their software with something like, I meet this requirement and here's the proof, like here's the function that does that, or here's the control that does that, or here's the config file that, you know, or here's the document that shows that thing. And then that would allow for automated tools to come in and say, great, to tell you that I'm doing SLSA, here is my build config, and here's this, and here's me tagged the build config with, the source and, blah, 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 whatever it is. And so then that sort of thing allows people to potentially just automate sort of compliance.
Okay, I think that I got it. So you basically, you can represent your build environment using Oscow. Of course, the idea is that it can be interoperable. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much is we want to be interoperable with other, controls and other requirements and other frameworks. And we want to make sure that, if there is, a particular requirement here that matches another requirement somewhere else, if somebody's doing those other things and they say, oh, do I need to go back and do all this work to figure out if I'm, SLSA compliant? And it's like, oh, I'm actually already mostly SLSA compliant. I'm only just missing these two things because I'm already doing these other things.
So question, Mike, since you probably have access to the repo, I see that I can't do a new branch. Is that by design?
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
by design. So the best option is to do a fork and then open up a pull request through the fork.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because I was like, I'm trying, but it's not in UI. I know how to do it through command line, but I don't have it cloned or anything like that. So, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, it looks like I can't quite do that. Okay, I can do that. Go. Okay, so hopefully that helps, Bruno. And then Josh and Mike, definitely going to need at least one more before I go on to the last one. The last one's pretty easy. The last one's just talking about the meetings and who we talk to.
Yeah.
To like tell about what we're doing.
So right now, so we've done at Red Hat a cross between Nist 853, by the way, and SLSA.
Yep. Yeah, Emmy and I forget the other girl's name. She worked with me and not Bruno.
Yeah,
Brandon.
Laura, right?
Yeah, Laura. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we did a mapping, but it was all manual, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's the problem, right? It's imagine if one of those controls changes, like SLSA right now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get it back without having to do manual work? It is very difficult. So
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike and Josh, if you can do these last two, and then I'll
Yep.
stop bugging you.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah. We can just finally get something off the list. I know we've done other things, but this one's been hanging out for a while.
I think this one's everyone's least favorite type of task.
Yeah. Well, the good news is we didn't spend a lot of time on it. I literally took a template and just went for it. And I think we've only talked about it like maybe 2 times in terms of a review. And that's about it. Create an open pull request. Okay, so this one, I need to get rid of these highlights. These highlights are to help me find the to-dos later in the document. None. Okay. Okay, 1, yay, we have the minimum 3. Okay, thanks, folks. Anything else in terms of working session or any of these other things that we need to kind of focus on?
I'm working with Jason, but he's not around. So that will probably come up later. We have a document that we're kind of getting ready for GitHub issues on the conformance program.
Oh,
But I
yeah,
think
yeah.
we're
makes
getting close to, I think that's something that we're going to want to kind of show to the larger positioning group maybe next week, when everyone's around. But so far it's in a pretty good place. And if anyone wants to get a first look, then please let me know and I can get you on that document
Sure.
on Google.
Oh, that works. Okay. Anything else? And thanks for joining, Josh. No,
Of course.
I know Laura said that she's had conflicts and she's been trying to join, but she has conflicts lately.
Things are stabilizing over here for me. We're in the new house, and but everything's crazy. Got spackle all on my walls. Still haven't
Nice.
painted things yet.
Yeah, I know the pain.
Yeah, that I don't envy that situation right now, because I can only imagine the chaos of boxes and all that other stuff. Oh my goodness. I still have boxes from like when I moved from North Carolina to Texas 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And I never touched.
Oh no.
Sitting in my
It
attic.
must not be important then, right?
It's not super important. No, it's just things that I lug around.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Anywho. Okay, well, I'll let you all go. I'm just kind of cleaning up the notes so that they are human readable.
Melba, just one question. I'm seeing that you
Sure.
have one of those to-dos is continuous compliance for 2023. What exactly it is?
This is for a blog. And so I forget where it is. There's where is it? I'm looking for it because it's hard to talk to. Where to go? I don't see it. GitHub. Why? No, framework. Oh, there's going to be a lot of frameworks. Hold on, I'm trying to find the picture for you, because otherwise I'm going to forget.
Oh, I know that picture that you have the diagram. I know that.
Yes. It's this end to end, but I'm changing it to life cycle instead of framework because it's not a framework. It's just visualizing the life cycle. And so, development was part of it, build was part of it. And then there's a published artifacts portion.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the bottom, there's a concept of continuous compliance where it's not just a one and done. What do you do from a DevOps perspective, or potentially even SLSA, to ensure continuous compliance?
Okay.
But because we don't think we're going to write it this year, it was just like, if I could write some general thoughts on what we could talk about, that was all I was going for. But there's no way we'll be able to write that this year. We need to focus on these other three. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that if you would like some help, because that's a topic that I have been discussed with many regulators and financial institutions.
Okay, yeah. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
Have a good week.
Bye.